welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Hollis.
This is a kinder, gentler episode, Dave. This is our first rom-com.
Yeah, I tried to come up with a better name than rom-com, like a rom-sci-com or a sci-com rom or something. Sci-fi rom-com, rom-sci-fi-com.
Yeah, well, it might be our first rom-com. I don't know what you'd want to call Midnight Run. Those guys get pretty chummy by the end.
Some of those chickens look pretty good back there.
Take a crack at them. This week, we are doing our first rom-com. It is called About Time, and it has sweet relationship stuff that is interspersed with sci-fi time travel stuff. I thought you might enjoy this film, Dave. Did it work its charms on you?
It did, yeah. You know, there's so much Tenet-style sci-fi. There's so much, especially quantum is the worst thing that ever happened to sci-fi movies and television. Everything's quantum now.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're like, wait, is that him or is that the other him? Or,
yeah, you're stuck in the multiverse.
Yeah, and they always put a scratch on their head. It's almost like someone who says like, oh, you got to mark if you have twins, you got to mark one of them to make sure you feed both of them.
Right.
But they always have the main character have a fall or get in a fight so that one guy can have a little Band-Aid. So you're like, okay, that's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
This does away with all that and makes the time travel absolutely simple. It's a simple process. It doesn't have a machine. It doesn't have a huge set of rules. It has a set of rules, and they're very important to the plot. But I really enjoyed the simplicity of the sci-fi mechanics in it.
Yeah, it is simplified. Well, first of all, let me just say this. We are covering About Time.
Yeah.
The 2013 rom-com, sci-fi, feel-good flick. A date night movie. Written and directed by Richard Curtis. Do you know the name, Dave?
Never heard it.
He is the guy behind Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill, Bridget Jones's Diary. And I first really became a fan of his writing during Blackadder, which he did with Rowan Atkinson. Kind of a time travel thing. It's the same character in different eras.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I remember hearing about it.
It's with Rowan Atkinson, and he did Mr. Bean with him as well.
Yes.
But this has got enough sci-fi to be fun and outside the box, but it doesn't have enough sci-fi to make your head hurt.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The sci-fi was so relaxed. It was nice, relaxing sci-fi.
Yeah. And I love Bill Nighy as his dad. How great is he in this?
Yeah, why do I know him from stuff?
He's been in lots of stuff, some of which Richard Curtis did, like in Love Actually. He's this aged rock star who's trying to have a number one hit.
Yeah, I could picture him with some tight pants on.
Yeah,
and being
totally.
Like, one more try.
Right. But yeah, he's just good in everything.
He's the perfect dad in this, yeah.
He is the perfect dad. And the device of time travel, apparently the men in this family can time travel. And all they have to do is go into a dark cupboard or closet, ball their hands into fists very tightly, close their eyes, and think of a moment in time, and they are brought there.
Right, and not think of like when Roman emperor was killed. It has to be a moment in time that they experienced.
Exactly.
So they can only travel along their own timeline. Yeah.
Right.
So you can say like last weekend's cookout, and you'll go to last weekend's cookout.
Right. And there are some odd rules attached, though. Like if you have children, let's say, it complicates everything. And children complicate things time travel. They
complicate it. They're not really officially a stopping block unless you really are becoming attached to your children,
right.
which tends to happen in all cases.
Yeah.
So it becomes a rule just because people tend to get very attached to their children. But theoretically, so the rule is once you have a kid, don't go back to anything before the birth of the kid because you will accidentally use a different sperm to penetrate the egg and you will lose that particular child and have a different child.
Yeah. Which, I don't want kids. I was like whatever, man. Just
Yeah,
you had a
I
girl,
know.
now you have a boy. Just go with it.
That's what I thought when he picked up the boy. I'd be like, "You'll get used to that. They're a little, that's
Yeah.
good. You got a kid. That's the same thing."
And if he was a different kind of guy, if he was some He-Man macho bullshit guy, he'd be like, oh, all right,
Hey,
a
got a
boy.
boy.
Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bonus.
No, but he loved Posey and he wanted Posey
Hmm.
back. And we get it.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's great because it's a device that's needed. There has to be a catch. So that's your catch. And it makes a bunch of the movie make good sense.
Yeah. I really love this cast. Domhnall Gleeson stars in it. His dad, I forget his first name, Brendan Gleeson, is great in everything. The first time I remember him is like Braveheart, but he was in Gangs of New York. He's in the Harry Potter franchise. He has one
So he's in
eye.
everything you'd expect Domhnall Gleeson's dad to be in.
Yeah.
Domhnall
Gleeson, obviously Irish with a vengeance.
He has a great line about that. He was too tall, too skinny, too orange.
There's a self-deprecating quality to his character that is very winning. He's really charming in a off-the-cuff, low-key way, almost like Hugh Grant's characters in Richard Curtis's stuff, except he doesn't have the obvious God-given visage. The love interest is played by Rachel McAdams, who you might know as the lead antagonist from Mean Girls and a number of things after that. The Notebook, several great things she's been in.
She looked familiar to me, but I hadn't.
Even if you had seen her in other things, you might not have connected it because they made her extra nerdy in this. They really nerded her up.
This is one of those cases where the movie is like, she's not even the hot one. And I'm like, says you. She's the hot one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot to me in movies. I'm like, they're like, but this one's hotter. And I'm like, is she? Like, I don't think, and Margot Robbie's the right person to get to try to convince your audience that she's hotter.
Yeah.
But it didn't work on me. I was like, I like that other girl.
And if you ever needed a stronger test of your relationship,
it's Margot Robbie inviting you to her room.
Yeah, have Margot Robbie throw herself at your man. And if he comes straight home and proposes to you, you've got a good man there in Tim.
He was headed up. I'm like, don't. What are you doing? What are you doing?
But it was very real because there's a certain part of a guy, maybe all guys, but I wouldn't paint everyone with that brush, who are like, I just kind of want to see where this would go, where it would go. And it's like, oh, okay. Oh, I could? Okay, great. I can go back to my life happy. That was answered, and there's a lesser kind of guy who would also be like, all right, let me do this. Let me see what that's like. Let me go in a cupboard, close my fists, go back to before that, and then not cheat and be a good guy. And it's like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I was afraid was going to be like, I was like, oh, is this going to be close your fists, make your cheating go away? Because that's not how that works.
I think also they kind of made him, at least to me, made it seem almost like he was sort of a virgin or damn near. I mean, the tempting thing would be there to be like, oh, you know what? I'll go back, experience other things from my life, especially when you're not in a relationship. Hey, let me go sleep with blah, 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 like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Like it's an odd ethical question that emerges from the power.
And sometimes in rom-coms and even in some television series, there's this thing where you give the nerd a little bit of a pass because he's had so little experience with hooking up, let's say, or with getting lucky. Actually, getting lucky is probably the best term because they've had such bad luck up until they've gotten the girl they've always wanted. This good luck comes along at a bad time, and you almost feel like, okay, I'll get it. I'll understand if the nerd does it. He's never had any opportunities. He has no experience in turning it down.
Yeah, it
may never happen again.
You're right. Getting lucky is the perfect phrase. because that's the only way it happens. They luck into it.
Yeah, yeah. So getting lucky is the right way to say it.
Yeah.
This guy is tall, he's thin. He says things like, he puts her number in his phone and he says, I've always thought this phone was shit. Now it's the most important thing I own.
It's my most prized possession. Yeah.
Now it's my most prized possession. Like a guy who says that, like off the cuff, is probably doing all right. But that's okay. I mean, you know, it's understood that he's awkward and
right.
He hasn't done well with women, surprisingly.
Yeah. Surprised, not surprised.
Yeah. And it could just be that he has he's very low on self-confidence, you know?
Mm-hmm. I love his whole family. His family lives in a part of England that now I want to live in, Cornwall.
Mm-hmm.
It is right on the sea. They have this beautiful, almost hippie lifestyle where they're just this wonderful unit. When they spend so much time together, they have movie night. They spend time outdoors year round, even when it's cold.
They have tea on the beach 7 days a week.
Oh,
365 days a year.
Yeah. I mentioned Bill Nighy was the dad. The mother is played by Lindsay Duncan, who is breathtakingly beautiful. She's an older woman who you've seen in lots of stuff. She was in the series Rome. She was in Under the Tuscan Sun. She plays this gorgeous, well, she's an older, gorgeous blonde woman and everything, but who used to work with Fellini. But anyway, here she's kind of a minor character, but she's impactful. She has great lines. She has great presence when she's there.
Yeah.
And they make a great couple, her and Bill Nighy.
She has one of the best lines in the movie.
Bring it.
I have absolutely no fucking interest in living the rest of my life without your father.
Yeah. That's a good woman right there.
Yeah.
You know? And
how are you? Absolutely no interest in living the rest of my life without your father.
And she's painted as a tough lady. And that's a great tough lady line because it kind of implies I'm going to seem to be fine probably. But life will never be the joy to me it is now. There's a character in this played by Richard Cordery, who is Uncle Desmond. And he dresses like a little dandy from the 30s and 40s. And it reminds me so much of this character, Binky, from this Alfred Hitchcock film, Suspicion, who is like also Natalie attired, but who is kind of not with it. He's not slow. He's oftentimes very well spoken and says insightful things at times, but he's just kind of a step behind. And people have to reiterate things to him in a way he can understand. Uncle Desmond is such a fun, eccentric character to find on this country estate.
Yeah. There's a great line where you get that not only does the audience appreciate Uncle Desmond, the family appreciates Uncle Desmond because the dad says to the son about his own funeral, how is Uncle Desmond's suit? Like, what was Uncle Desmond's suit like?
It's understood.
Like,
He'd wear something.
I'm sorry,
good.
I missed it. You know?
Yeah. Tim has a sister, Kit Kat, played by Lydia Wilson, who's adorable and is kind of this child of nature. You know, she belonged in the 60s and everyone takes advantage of her. These guys that she falls in love with too easily take advantage of her. And there are a couple of times where he goes back in time to try to save her. Once from a car accident, his wife told him, no, she's got to figure it out by herself. And he's like, no, fuck that. And he goes back in time and saves her from the agony of the car accident. Another time he brings her back and avoids her meeting a guy that she knows is trouble. And she winds up with someone.
Because Mary, his wife, says, you can't fix it. She has to fix it herself. And she's not referring to time travel because she doesn't know about time travel.
Right.
But she manages to say that and be right about the time travel. You can't go back and fix it. She has to fix it.
Because when he realizes he can't go back because he changed who his child was, he ends up going back and she has to have that car accident. And then they simply have a sort of intervention in the hospital over a couple of days. It hits her that she has to change her ways.
I kind of like that. It was like a brute force attack that they call in computer password. You know, when you just Is your password 1? Is your password 2? Is your password 3?
Mm,
So on and so forth. And you just go through every possible. So, but they just sat at her bedside.
yeah.
She was like, you can go home. No. Okay, you can go home now. No. And they just basically sat there and stared at her
They
until she
raw
said,
dogged her.
yeah, until she said, I need to stop drinking, don't I? And they
Hmm.
were like, if you say so, I
Hmm.
need to break up with Jimmy, don't I? If you say so. Like she works it all out. They just stared at her until she worked it all out. It was a nice scene.
It really was.
They did it as husband and wife, side by
Yeah.
side, no time travel.
I like films that bring up a lot of questions that are applicable in your own life, and
Mhm.
like how you would use the time travel. When his dad is breaking it down to Tim, he says, you can't go back and kill Hitler. You can't, it's
Mhm.
moments from your own life that you can experience again, but you can clearly change them. You can do things over. That goes for his first night with Mary, where he like makes sure that he has great sex with her after the
Mhm.
third try. And there's even a joke. She's like, "Oh, all right. You think one is enough?" And he's like, "That's unfair." Like
Yeah,
he doesn't know
because
that
for him, it's the 3rd or 4th. We don't
yeah.
really know how many.
But it also brings up ethical questions within the movie of just like, because you end up with this person, because you know that you had a meet cute and things happened gradually and they happened perfectly the first time. Is it ethical to go back the second time after you had to change things and kind of use some of her own words to charm her and
Mhm.
some of the information of where she meets someone else to break that up? And who's to say you're her greater good? So
Yeah,
it's a little egocentric and kind of murky.
but though it does do more than most time travel movies do, or even most shady attempts at getting with someone using insider information. It at least says the connection is real. It was sort of love at first sight for both of them. He's not taking her down a road that she didn't want to go down. He's making that road less bumpy, but he's also making sure it sticks. He's making sure it
Yeah.
happens,
Yeah.
making sure the sex is good by erasing the first one, erasing the second one. Even though the first one was okay, the second one was pretty good, but he
Hmm.
keeps going until he gets a great one.
Right.
He fixes the meeting of the parents with
Hmm.
several. They imply that he does it with several trips to the bathroom to close his
that's
to the.
that's played for comic effect a few times in the movie, that
Mm,
repetitive thing of like,
yeah,
fixing things.
yeah. There's an ethical question, but it's less so than I usually see in situations like this.
Yeah. I just want to say that I think actually my wife and I were watching this, and my wife was like, the reason that they're nerding her up so much is
Right.
to kind of drag her down to his level a little more aesthetically and make it more believable. Because he's got a great personality. He's a sweetheart. He comes from good people, but it has to be believable that these two are kind of meant for each other. And she has a bit of a mousy personality as well. But I'll tell you something, Dave. This was now my third time watching this. Rachel McAdams' character of Mary got a little more abrasive in the repeated watching,
I
in
fe-
the
I
repeated
fe-
viewing.
I felt the abrasion on the first viewing. There was a point
Okay,
where
yeah.
where I was like, are they going to say that he may have made a mistake? Because I thought they were like almost hinting at she's not as fun and nice as you think she is.
And as
Um,
easygoing and laid back as you think she is.
yeah.
And maybe that's just, that's human nature. I've said this once before, everybody's crazy when you get to know them. You know,
Mm,
you reveal more of yourself the longer you're with someone. And you kind of, you don't dole out the crazy all at once. You kind of like let someone get to know you and you let your guard down more and more. But she became a little autocratic, especially when it came to having a third child. Now, I feel that overpopulation is a problem. I think people have way too many kids as it is. But within the nature of the movie and loving Bill Nighy's character as much as I do, the fact that this guy, and she has no way of knowing that he has
Mhm.
to choose between having a third child, which you already have two, and having his father for as long as he wants him.
Yeah. So if you're, if you're a little confused, if you didn't see it, or if you're not sure what we're talking about, it's the fact that once the new child is born, actually, once the new child is conceived, he
Hmm.
can no longer go back and visit his father. She doesn't realize that the question is doubly loaded when she hints at having another child.
And here's another question, Dave. I don't know about you. Once I found out about the whole time travel thing, after a little while, I would have to tell my wife. I couldn't keep that from
Yeah,
her.
it's almost like there's like a plot flaw. Like,
Yeah,
they have a great relationship. They have a great relationship. What a
not
great
so.
relationship. It's like, no, no, he has the ability to travel in time, and he hasn't told her. That's not a great relationship.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, keeping secrets from your partner could be maybe the equivalent of a little white lie. Maybe like, oh, I've never told her that I hate this thing, but she enjoys it so much. Let's do like I could.
I'll go to the grave
I'll go to the
saying that I
grave.
love her fettuccine Alfredo. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
little things like that, but the big secret, the mothership, as he and his
Yeah.
dad call it,
Yeah.
no.
No. Yeah, there's no excuse. It's
It's
inexcusable.
especially when, and he does this with Kit Kat, especially when you know all he has to do is hold her hands and take her with him.
Yeah, that was sort of glossed over,
That
wasn't
was
it? Like, "Oh,
amazing.
you take people with you?"
I
Yeah.
don't even think Bill Nighy knew he could do that.
Yeah. Speaking of that, they did a great job. It's fun to watch someone, you're watching this sci-fi movie, at some point somebody's going to have to tell someone the secret. And it's
Hmm.
fun to watch those actors. Like, it must be so exciting to do that scene. I have something very peculiar. I have something to tell you. It's going to sound very peculiar.
Yeah. It gives them
And
another layer to play.
yeah, and they get to do a few minutes of, okay, if this is true, Dad, which it isn't, it is,
Right.
but it isn't, but it is. Like, there's
Right.
a great back and forth. And that's also where the beauty of the simplicity of this time travel comes in. All you need is a closet, bathroom, cupboard, anything dark, and the ability to clench your fists and think.
Right.
That's all you need.
Also, there's a great moment. It's the wedding. He has a
The best
talk with
man
his
speech.
son. Yeah, the
Oh,
best man speech. He does that over and over. That's great for comic effect. He goes way back in time to pick a different best man each time.
mhm.
But I remember at one point he's talking with his dad, and he says to him, "Have we had this conversation before?" And his
Yeah, that was
dad
a
is like,
nice touch.
"Yeah, once or
I'm doing
twice,
it.
yeah."
I'm doing it too. Like, we both can
Yeah,
do it. I'm doing it
it's
too.
so
Yeah.
it's a great little wink
Yeah, it's
between
a
them.
wink to the fact that the dad, he's like, I forgot to say I love you in the best man speech. And
Yeah,
but what I was saying is that it's such a simple, there's no machine. There's no like cocktail of drugs. There's no injection. There's no stand on this plate and push this button. Go in the closet and clench your fists.
yeah.
So when his father tells him this, he's not like, well, I'm going to go to the institute and get in the machine and find out. It's like, all right, I'm going to go to my room now and get in the cupboard. Like, I'll be back to tell you, shame on you for fooling me in about 5 minutes.
Right,
And
right.
and he says that. He says, I'll be back
Yep.
to reprimand you for playing this joke on me. And he comes back and he says, holy cow, it worked. Great stuff. Just great to watch someone
Mhm.
realize the sci-fi element of the movie, and to watch it within a rom-com is so fun. It's one of the reasons Bill and Ted's was so fun, because the sci-fi is not couched in saving the world or
Mm.
an apocalypse, or it's really fun to watch sci-fi unfold in a friendlier, happier environment. It doesn't have to all be rinse, die, repeat. You
Right.
know, if you set up a time travelers expo, it should be packed. You don't have to, you shouldn't have to, I don't know, like, you shouldn't have to tell anyone about it or
Uh,
whatever. It's like
huh.
anyone can go from any time. And there's a thing about it. I forget what it is. And then there's also, what do we want? Time travel. When do we
When do we
want it?
want it?
Doesn't really matter. Uh,
I wanted to ask you about some of the aspects of time travel in this because it's way more in your wheelhouse. His dad at the end wants one last walk before he's gone, and he
Mhm.
wants to take it with Tim as a little kid. And so he goes back in time and brings Tim with him, I suppose by holding his hands. So it's
Mhm.
on his watch that he went back in time, and they didn't, they were careful not to do anything, just skip stones and
Yeah,
then
that's
go
why
back.
it's a walk on the beach, because 'cause they're completely removed from all human beings.
Right. But then
Um,
because they didn't encounter anyone else, they're safe and he could go back and they didn't change Tim's sex or
right,
anything.
right, right.
But Tim couldn't even go back half as far now. Tim couldn't take that walk with his dad. It had to be his dad.
It's a good question. Why can't Tim go back and take that walk with his dad? His dad has 2 kids.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure. You could get into all kinds of crazy details. They're picking up rocks and throwing them in the water. Other people go to that beach. Somebody else might bend down and pick up a different rock than they would have. They could screw up someone else's life. Like, there's no consideration to other people's lives.
No, it's very much an insular kind of world. Like I said with him, as far as making sure he gets this woman, it's very egocentric, this whole thing. And why the men in this one family? I would have loved more talk about the ancestors and stuff. And how did they even come across this? Was one guy just, I'm so furious, I'm going to stand in a closet with my fists clenched? Like, how did,
Well, I was
and then,
thinking that that would be likely to happen by accident.
yeah,
Like, I could see I'm mortified at what I just did. I'm in the closet. I wish I could turn back time
right.
to before this happened, and boom, there you are. That's part of the believability of that it could be discovered, is
Yes,
because
well
people
done.
do stand in closets and say, "I can't believe I just did that. I wish I
Right,
hadn't," or "I wish
right.
I'd said this."
Yeah,
Um, and you know, there's a whole thing where you're like, okay, the movie is not about time travel. I mean, the movie is completely about time travel, but the movie is not trying to make a point about time travel. It's trying to make a point. It's not trying to make a point about the past or the future. It's trying to make a point about the present. The whole point of the film is that
yeah.
every moment is a gift and you enjoy every day. What could be more what could point more to how important it is to enjoy every day than his dad telling him, "My advice to you is to do each day, and then at the end of the day, go back and do it again. Don't change it, just enjoy it more." And it reminded me of when we talked about when you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the first time you see it, you spend the whole movie waiting for Tarantino to start killing people,
Yeah.
not realizing that he doesn't kill anyone until the very end.
Hmm.
Um, And the second time you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you get to go, "Ooh, look at those marquees. Ooh, what a lovely," you get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's very similar. His dad says, "Go through a day, and then at the end of every day, go through it again, knowing that it's fine, and enjoying it twice as much."
I think he might have said, like, live 6 months that way and then go back.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it was a day at a time, but
Oh, I think it was the impression I got was each day, at the end of the
mhm.
day, do it again. So
Oh,
Monday,
okay.
Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I was so surprised because I thought when he went back to do it, I thought when his friend handed in the work, it would have been so easy for him to just make sure that you're handing in a better report or that the paragraph he wanted fixed was fixed. I was so expecting him to Groundhog Day things.
But his dad's advice was, "Don't change, just go back and do it again."
Yeah.
And he did a little. He wrote a little
Hmm.
note on his pad that I couldn't even read it. It said, like, "This guy's a dick."
That's exactly what it said. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, "This time I'll be prepared to soften the blow for my friend Rory."
And him
Um,
and Rory are running through their equivalent of Grand Central Station or whatever. And at some point he stops him and he's like, oh my God, look up at the
it's
ceiling. Look
so
how beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's the
And
little
that's
things.
yeah. I think there's something that, like, life coaches or something will make as an exercise or something, where you say, What if I told you you could go back to a day and you could live that day more carefully and more perfectly, that you really could appreciate life and that you could get the most out of that day that you missed the chance. Now you can go back and fix that day, make that day great. Well, your initial reaction to that is, okay, that sounds like a good deal. And then all they have to say to you is, okay, today's that day.
Fuck you, life coach.
Yeah, exactly.
That's bullshit.
And then they can dab the blood from their nose where you punched.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a decent mechanism to say you are in control of your life. You do have the extra special control of your life. You're in it right now. Go call someone who's mad at you, or call someone who you're mad at. Put down some cookies and eat something else. Go sign up for something. It's all right there in front of you.
This movie is very much the visual equivalent of Warren Zevon's "Enjoy Every Sandwich." You know?
It's funny. I never knew that Warren Zevon said that. For most of my life, I never knew Warren Zevon said that. Yeah. I found out that probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Were you not a David Letterman guy?
I loved Letterman. When we started Hockey Night in Chinatown, me and Timmy, we would play Hit Somebody at the end of every night, which was Warren Zevon's hockey song. Mm-hmm. And in the song, David Letterman yells, "Hit somebody!" And you can tell it's David Letterman. Mm-hmm. Great story song about a kid whose dad froze the backyard so he could skate and learn to play hockey, and grows up to be a goon, but all he ever wanted to do was score a goal. Anyway, great song. But when I found out that Warren Zevon, what was it that he said specifically? He said
he's learned to enjoy every sandwich.
Right.
Something like that.
Occasionally suicide would come up. Like, have you ever considered suicide, or you ever been suicidal? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And they're like, well, what keeps you from killing yourself? And I would say, I think sandwiches.
This was during your chicken parm era?
Very, very, I may have on occasion said specifically chicken parm sandwiches.
Yeah.
You just never know when that next amazing sandwich is coming. It's really nice to lay into a good sandwich, and it's worth waiting for the next good sandwich.
Yeah, and that sandwich could be any number of things. That it's not a sandwich.
I am specifically
right.
Very much I'm talking about sandwiches.
Yeah, in this case, that's
right.
enough.
But it could be many things. But I'm very much speaking of sandwiches. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that from Warren Zevon, I not only did I love Warren Zevon more, but I felt better about I was like, I'm on the genius level of Warren Zevon.
Wow. Woo.
I mean, Little Old Lady Got Mutilated Late Last Night is probably the best lyric ever written.
Yeah. Oh, he's got a ton of them.
Yeah.
He's underknown. I think he'll be rediscovered at some point. After talking about all this positivity and optimism, I think it's time to bring up the character of Harry Chapman, the negative Nancy of a playwright, played expertly by Tom Hollander.
Have I seen him in something? He looked familiar. He was great.
He was on White Lotus.
Nope.
He plays Truman Capote in The Swans, that's currently on FX, which, drove off the fucking rails. But anyway, he's a great, great actor. He plays this playwright. He rents a room to Tim. And I love that his opening night is a disaster because one of the actors completely blanks and has the biggest quote unquote dry as
I learned that term in this movie. I didn't.
Yeah, and Harry says that it's just a terrible thing. It's none of the newspapers are writing about the play or about him, just how it's the most epic dry in the history of theater. And so very selflessly, I think, Tim goes back in time. And on the night of his big kind of moment of meeting the woman of his dreams.
Yeah, it's his rom-com night. That's
his rom-com night. Yeah. he goes back and instead tries to get the actor to read the script beforehand, take another look at it. And we see him sitting with the playwright and he's enjoying, oh my God, this is happening. I helped him and he's hitting all his marks. And then Richard E. Grant, who plays one of the actors, Richard Griffiths, who you know from Harry Potter, plays the other one, rest in peace. Richard E. Grant comes out and is about to speak his line. And it turns out he got the wrong actor to study his lines. Richard E. Grant is the one who goes dry. So he goes out again to fix that. And he has
this time
cue
he makes
cards.
cue cards. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
It's so well done. And it
is really well done.
And then he gets raves. And this character would be negative no matter what. And maybe he was happier and more himself with negative reviews, but he took it upon himself to fix it at the expense of meeting his girl. So that says something. I know not what.
Yeah, the act of helping the playwright removes his girl's phone number from his phone. When you're watching the movie, it makes perfect sense. You're like, yeah, oh, that's right. He wouldn't have that phone number. He wouldn't have gone and gotten, because he's thinking, well, I have her phone number. So
yeah, short-sighted.
Her phone number disappears. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very new to it all.
I love how Harry, the playwright, sticks to his negativity. I love how he stays angry. I love how he doesn't warm up. He's angry as a failure. He's angry as a success.
You are who you are at the end of the day.
Great.
It's great.
His death day line is good. I forget exactly what it is, but somebody says like, it's tough. And he goes, hateful day.
Hateful day. He knows from Hateful Days.
Trust me, I invented hateful. And this is a hateful day. And I was like, yeah, buddy. Like your character is paying off in that line. He's great. He's great with the little teddy bear, and Rory has the big teddy bear. And he's like, I know one thing, never bring a present smaller than the child. And he's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, with his little tiny teddy bear.
He has a little bear, yeah.
It's such a great reveal. That's the comedy background of Richard Curtis firing on all cylinders there. You know, this movie is almost your favorite expression, Dave, a love letter to ordinary life.
Yeah, yeah.
To just a life well spent. And the fact that this character, and I want to ask you what you think of this character simply, towards the end of the film, puts this time machine in a closet, you know, just puts it in a drawer. And you wonder if he's ever going to go back to it. Not to get all Stan Lee here, but the great responsibility that comes with this power. You do a disservice to all your loved ones who don't know you can fix things. You do a disservice to your children, to the community at large. There are some things that maybe deserve a polish, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you know, Bill Murray taught us, you know, kid falls out of a tree. That's either a death or a traumatic brain injury. All you got to do is stop by that corner, catch the kid. And this is much easier. Bill Murray has to go to that tree every day. Right. Our guy, Tim, only has to go once and then it's solved. Which is immediately telegraphed to us in one of the first scenes in the film. His very first time travel. A first scene is a party where a giant tray of empty and full drinks gets knocked over. And in the second, he knows that gets knocked over and he avoids it. So it immediately lets us know, like, you can fix things. And I love the relaxed laid backness of this sci-fi. He says to his father, like, what about, you know, the ripple effects? What about the butterfly? What about that whole thing that everyone always talks about? He's like, yeah, no, it's been fine so far. That's it. That's it. Yeah, it's been fine so far, you know. Nobody stepped out of a cupboard into an apocalypse. I think we're fine.
Right.
And that's it. And I love that. Why not?
Yeah.
Can't there be levels of how you take this, or how does every time travel movie have to be about the brutal punishments of changing time?
Right.
You know?
Well, I had a practical question, and I wanted to ask you specifically this, because I have trouble wrapping my mind around certain aspects of time travel that maybe you'll be able to straighten me out. Oh, good. Let's say he's like, oh, just going to pop into the cupboard for a minute. And for everybody else, he does come back in a minute. But what's happening when he comes back in that minute? His wife has experienced a minute. Things could have changed. The kid could have hurt himself and he wasn't around. He can go back earlier and change it. But other people in the next building are living their lives. People up the block. If he goes back in time for 6-7 hours, everyone else is still doing their things. Other people are putting things in motion that might affect him at his job, at his parents' house, at a doctor's. Like, what? That's all on hold. It's a very egocentric time travel movie.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're just stepping ever so slightly out of his egocentric circle.
Yeah.
But you could step so much further out of his circle. Worlds are turning.
Apparently not. Apparently they stay still or they go backwards.
Bodies are
Decaying.
orbiting each other. Right.
Yeah.
Nuclear furnaces are burning in space. That all stops or reverts, or but that's the thing, is that's the beauty of a rom-com sci-fi.
Right.
It's like, don't you dare pick at that. Like, that is not why we're here. We're not here for you to pick at that.
Yeah.
But every one of those avenues is fascinating. Anyone would be in their right to say, I'm remaking About Time, and I'm going to dive into what happens to the ancillary characters. That would be a fascinating thing,
Yeah.
Anytime, that's the beauty of science fiction. Anytime you introduce this device, in this case, a human mind-induced time travel, introduce a device like that, you're off and running. Your sci-fi mind is off and running, and you're like, wait, how would it affect this? How would it affect? You can do this, but what happens to him? It happens here, but does it happen there? Everyone, all the Neil deGrasse Tyson and everybody loves to say, like, when you get in your time machine and you go to last week, you're going to reappear in space because the Earth isn't where it was last week. And I'm always thinking, like, well, of course the time machine takes that into consideration. Why would anyone design a time machine that only has a time coordinate? Of course it has a space coordinate. But that's the beauty of, that's what writing a sci-fi book is. It's coming up with a device and then just going bonkers with it.
Because also, while you're away for an hour in the cupboard or something, you're not living that part of your life in the present day. So if you come back, you're missing time, it appears to me.
Yeah, I mean, but again, I could say, like, well, you just set it to always come back the instant you left. It should be, you pull the door shut and the door opens. Anybody watching you should see you step into the cupboard and step out of the cupboard instantaneously.
Right.
Always. Yeah. And you can really come back anytime you want.
Yeah. There's one great time travel thing that is kind of glossed over. It's a line that Bill Nighy's character, Tim's dad, has later in the film. And it keys us in that he retired early at 50. And that's when everything started. That's when they all started spending so much time together. That's when they started having all of their tea times together and the movie nights and he started reading more and walking on the beach and skipping stones and stuff. So he got a diagnosis early. Didn't key in anybody, just set up, right, I'm going to step in the cupboard, going to go back, the smoking was way before I had kids. I can't fix it.
Can't go back and quit smoking.
Can't go back.
Can't go back and get an x-ray sooner.
Right. But I can quit my job as soon as possible and live life with my family who I love the right way. And so that's what it is. And then there's a sort of bookend to that in the decision Tim makes later. And I called up a line I want to say, at the end of the film, the truth is I now don't travel back at all, not even for the day. I just try to live every day as if I've deliberately come back to this one day to enjoy it, as if it was the full final day of my extraordinary, ordinary life.
That's the message. There you go. That's the message of the movie. That's the life coach thing we were talking about.
Yep.
here you are. Congratulations. This is where you time travel to. Now do what you were going to do, which is do your best.
Yeah.
Enjoy it the most. Be the nicest.
Yeah.
Imagine how nice his dad was. His dad knew the whole time. So his dad never said, "You're an idiot." His dad never yelled at him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
And before Tim even knows that the men can time travel, he's narrating, telling us about his life. And he's like, and my dad is somehow always available for a game of ping pong. Like,
mm,
that's the way he set up his new life.
yeah, it's not a coincidence. Yeah.
No. And
Yep.
he's read every book he loves 3 times. He's
Mm,
just, oh,
yeah. Every book he loves 2 or 3 times, the Dickens more.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's one tagline I found: what if every moment in life came with a second chance? Which is simple and says it. I don't think
hmm
you're going to get an extraordinary tagline for a movie like this.
It's got, the two things are time and love.
Hmm.
That's what, right? Time and life. Is it time and life, I guess, or time and love?
Yeah.
Uh, there's a Heinlein book called Time Enough for Love,
I'm
which
reminded of the Twilight Zone episode, Time Enough at Last. Burgess Meredith with his glasses reading his books.
that's the title. That's a really good title for that one because
Mhm.
you said Time Enough at Last, and I immediately pictured Burgess on the steps in front of the library. And I
Yeah.
did not know that title.
Mm,
Yep. And then he steps on his glasses, obviously, or he drops them.
right.
Um, but yeah, that's a good tagline. I feel like there's a great tagline somewhere.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure that's not it. There's a great
No.
one somewhere, but
I mean, it seems like it should key into the title a bit more. You have a great title that kind of hints at it, about time. It seems like there should be somewhat of a kind of a suffix kind of
I
that'll
mean,
come in.
when you see the words "about time," what's the first thing that comes to me? What comes to mind is waiting, and
Yeah.
that's what you say when you're like, "It's about time."
Yeah.
And to me, that is not the feeling of the movie. At no point
Right.
in this movie is it like, "Oh, I'm waiting for this really important thing," and it's come. It's about, or where were you? It's about time. I just don't think anything in the movie really fits with the phrase "about time." It's like a different use, a lesser use of "about time." Does this mean on the subject of time?
It also kind of sounds like a lead in that Bill Nighy's, when he sits him down, is like, all right, let me tell you something about time.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and the
Mm.
movie is about time. The theme is about time.
2 words and several meanings, that's very
Hmm.
rom-com, so it's a good rom-com title.
Yeah.
I didn't love the title, like, if somebody said, "I'm gonna call it About Time," I'd be like, "Ah, I
Right.
think you might wanna think about calling it something else."
Uh,
I like Time Enough for Love,
mm,
but, obviously Heinlein took that. That's about a guy, Lazarus Long, who lives hundreds and hundreds of years through selective breeding. He belongs to a society where long-lived people sort of have a dating site and they all sort of
mm,
build upon their ability to live a long time. That plus various technologies lets them live for hundreds of years. And because
right.
of that, they get to have a wife and or he gets to have a wife and have children and grow up. And then the kids go off and do their thing and him and the wife grow apart and then he meets another woman and he has another family and he
Right.
tries a different vocation and he learns other hobbies. So there's time enough to do all the
Mm.
things. It's like the same but different.
I felt this
Um,
movie could have used some selective breeding. um, there's just
but
there's one more actress I want to call out, Vanessa Kirby as Joanna. I fell in love with her when she played Princess Margaret on The Crown. She's
okay.
so good, and she's been in a lot of things since then, a lot of big Hollywood blockbuster things. But she's such a great character. Yeah, I keep
Uh,
coming back to that horrible haircut that Rachel McAdams had in this. That fringe, just yeah, they really kind of nerded her down.
I liked that her friend was the main person who was truly bothered by the weather at the wedding.
Yeah, that
They're
was a
showing it
shitty
people
wedding.
they're showing people laughing and, like, running out of the rain, like, "Oh my god," and everybody sorta has an attitude like, "This will be so memorable,"
I turned to
and
my wife at the time and I'm like, this just looks unfortunate to me. I don't see the
yeah,
charm in this. And she agreed.
it's a
Like,
bit they lay it on a little heavy
they
how bad.
do.
Yeah, but I guess it's setting up so that, Mary can say, "I wouldn't change a thing."
Yeah, because he's asking pretty much, should I go back?
He's like,
Should
"Want
I
me to
change
go? Because
this?
I can redo this. I can
I
redo
can
it,
make
like,
it indoor.
depending on what you say right now, we're about to have a different wedding."
Hmm.
Um, but that also is that's a very important moment. He says,
Yeah.
basically, "I can change all this." He doesn't say that. He says, "Are you okay with this?" But the subtext is, "'Cause I can fix it."
Right.
Sometimes he says that out loud to Harry, "I'll see what I can do." And Harry's like, "What are you gonna do? Call every newspaper?" And when you do, you can say to people like, "Oh, I'll fix it," because you will not have said that.
Right. Yeah,
So
they
you
won't
can,
remember.
yeah, in
See, and
theory,
that's
you could,
just it. The egocentric thing, it presupposes that everyone else in this world and other worlds are all minor characters in the lives of the men in this family.
right, right.
That they are the creators
Yeah, the
almost.
dad's name might as well be Zeus. Give Greek names to the rest of them
Yeah,
because obviously the world is their plaything.
it seems like.
Yeah.
Now I want to see a movie with Bill Nighy as Zeus
Yeah.
that just writes
There's a
itself.
there's a
Oh,
new TV show with Jeff Goldblum as Zeus.
chaos. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um,
The preview is him on the, "Hey, hey, it's your dad, Zeus. Hey,
right.
hey, I guess I got your answering machine. Did you see what happened with that monument? I'm wondering, but I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
check that out.
yeah,
Uh, yeah. Again, you're not supposed to pick at this movie.
yeah.
You know, relaxed science fiction. They're so few and far between. It's like unheard
Hmm.
of. Somebody goes to a movie company and says, "I got this science fiction script." It's like we read it and well, like, where's the monster? Can we put a monster in?
Mm.
It's like, yeah, well, there is no monster. It's the fact that it's time travel should be interesting enough. It's
Right,
like, well, could he stop a war? It's like, no, the fact that it's time travel should be interesting enough.
right.
Like they always try to. Could one of the computers be possessed? Like be evil? Like,
Uh,
could a robot kill a robot? It's like, oh, forget it.
well, you know what? That's what I appreciate is the time travel here is just meant to spice up the rom com and give you a little something extra you don't get in rom coms. It makes it something other. And the reason that this movie succeeds is not even the time travel element. Their courtship, the things they say to each other, the relationships and the things people admit to each other and the relationships that they have is the reason this movie succeeds.
I'd watch that kid Tim grow up, fall in love, get married, have kids. I'd watch that happily without the
Yeah.
time machine element. Perfectly
Yeah.
good.
That's
Yep.
what's good about it. And there's witty banter between people. It's well
Okay,
written.
we're Americans. We love watching British people hit
Oh,
each other with fantastic one-liners.
oh yeah,
You
all
don't get
day.
that in a lot of American films, except for
No.
Sweet Smell of Success.
Boom.
Okay, let's say you were describing this movie to someone. You didn't mention the British element. You didn't mention who made it. And you just sort of ran down how it works, about how it's like this funny movie about a guy who falls in love, but he fixes all the problems using time travel and stuff. I think people might go, "Wait, is it an Adam Sandler movie?"
I was just going to say Sandler. Yeah.
That's one of the things that's impressive about this movie.
Yeah.
The idea seems hokey. The idea seems silly. What they put out is touching and serious and funny, and it's not hokey. It's not even a little hokey. It's terrific.
A good idea in skillful hands
Mm.
always comes out well.
I'm not saying Sandler's not skillful. He does what he wants to do, and he does it. Obviously, he does it well enough to just make trillions of dollars.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't want to see Adam Sandler's About Time.
Don't apologize to him.
Not to mention, it would be called, what would it be called?
Didn't he make one with like a remote control?
That's what it was. He had a remote control with a pause button.
Yeah, terrible. All right, Dave. So we end on a little Sandler bashing.
Yeah, you're bad. Adam, call me.
I recommend you see this film. See it once, maybe see it twice. When you see a Richard Curtis film 3 times, you're going to want to kill yourself. Problems emerge. It gets a little too treacly. It gets a little too sweet. I can't go near Love Actually. It's nuclear for me now. The things that make it unwatchable become overbearing. But this is a charming, offbeat rom-com.
You just said to see it once and then see it again.
Oh my God. About Time. See it again.
That's it.
That's it. We got it.
That's
All
it.
right. I'm out.
About Time. See it again.
All right, Dave. Good work.
Thank you, Hollis.
Hollis and Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.